Hey everybody, welcome to the Defuse and Discuss Podcast. My name is Jeff. I'm the co-owner here at CataclysmGaming, and today I am joined by our Immortal 3, hopefully soon Radiant player, the Muffin Man. Muffin, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I lost my Mortal 3, so
No, you're killing
I
me.
don't know.
You're killing me.
I don't know about
That's
that
okay, you get it
Radiant,
back.
but
That's what you get for queuing ranks during finals week.
that's true. That's true. You're
Yeah.
not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I knew you. You were like, man, I need a break from these finals.
Yeah, man. I only have
Queued up
one
a ranked
left,
game.
but I queued up 6 and I lost 4, so
So close to freedom. So close to freedom.
very
And then we get
close.
Muffin
Yeah,
Man at full power.
true. Very true.
Anyways, that's definitely thrown a wrench in us getting this online. We were supposed to be talking about this right after Madrid, but here it is, no longer right after Madrid. But where else are we going to start, man? That's definitely the big thing, right? Sentinels winning Madrid. Huge congratulations to them. It's an incredible feat, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you know, preseason they were doing pretty well. So I guess people still expected them to do very well. But I gotta be honest, I didn't expect them to win. Not even make it to
Yeah.
finals. I think people mainly were thinking like Loud, maybe Paper X, even though Jinggg wasn't there anymore. But
Also, really good contenders for that. I mean, I think people did maybe not even expected them to go there, right? I think everybody expected Loud and NRG would be the ones to make it. So the fact that Sentinels even made it to Masters Madrid is
yeah,
step
that's
up.
another thing. NRG, I thought NRG was gonna win. I gotta be honest, I'm a huge NRG fanboy, but they didn't even go.
Yeah.
And then another surprise for me, which wasn't a surprise for you, you kind of called the day one, is that Gen G
Wow.
made it to finals.
I saw their games, man. I was looking at their games and the way they were playing. I was like, man, these guys are on it. The only thing that's going to make them flounder it is if they let it get to them, like let that pressure get to them. And I think when we got to the finals, we could see it. Like Gen G had already beaten Sentinels twice at that point. They had proven pretty conclusively that they were the best team there. But Sentinels got that NA spirit, that whole
Yeah,
mindset of like it doesn't matter what you've done, like we can't be beaten if we just show up and play the game. And they
I mean
kind of
they've been
drag it
playing
out.
great. Like
That is true.
honestly, like everything's been good for them. Their retakes are good. Their post plants are good. Their side execs are good. Like everything has just been so
Well,
good for them.
let's talk about the secret sauce here for Sentinels, right? Like, what is the secret sauce for Sentinels? It's got to be John,
Yeah, I
right?
mean, yeah,
It
yeah.
has to be John. There is no thing
IGL
like
who's dropping
20 kills a map
4Ks.
easy,
Yeah, yeah,
and clutching out so
yeah.
many rounds. Which actually, we got some interesting stats on that I want to talk about from Masters Madrid because the numbers can be a little misleading if you don't know how to look at them. So let's
Yeah,
get
that's
those
true.
pulled up here and examine maybe what it is that could be misleading. And on the subject of our boy John, uh, let's just go ahead and point out the fact that he has 14 out of 80 clutches. Hello, who ends up in 80 clutches?
Yeah, yeah,
That is so many. Like the other players on this list are capping at 30. That's
yeah,
50 less rounds that they had
Mhm.
to clutch out.
Yeah. It's.
That is wild.
I mean, it is. I mean, just the fact that Tens and John QD were two of the top three players for clutches one kind of says a lot in my opinion as well. Like they're playing
Yeah,
well as
for
a
sure.
team, but the individual level of each of those players is insane, right? Like
Well, I mean,
again,
John's in the
like
top 3 for kills. He's got 293
yeah,
kills,
that too.
right?
Yeah, I mean,
That's nuts.
if you look at like basically any stats, Sentinels players are kind of bound to be there for the majority of them, right? Like Zekin's
Yeah,
done the most
they're
first
in
kills
everything
by
except for
almost
KD and headshots.
yeah. I mean Zekin dropping almost double the amount of first kills that the second player did at the event. Zekin at 96 and something came up with 54,
Yeah.
which is like I mean
Well,
that's
there's got to
huge,
be
right?
some
Like
context to this, right? Like, there's got to be some context to this. Sentinels played 5 more maps than any team except for Gen G.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
And
That's
and
fair.
and they played 3 more maps than Jinggg did because Sentinels had to go through the lower bracket game.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Sentinels play for content too. I'll say it right now.
yeah,
For
well,
content. They go to lowers and then they just steamroll from that point on.
yeah,
They kind of
they
just
did
destroy everybody. Like,
roll through that for sure. But they did have to go down because Jinggg, yeah, at least 3 more maps than Jinggg, right? So Sentinels, they definitely got some help here. They definitely got some help in a lot of these raw numbers departments. I mean, if we're looking at kills, 381 kills, right? Like, okay, even at the bottom, right? 293 kills at the bottom of that. But you're looking at the course of 5 maps. If John's dropping 15 kills a map, he's going to have a pretty significant advantage over anybody trying to compete for that. So that's where these numbers can be a little misleading. But I think the one that's most interesting to try and pick out of this is it's like, for me, this goes back to John again, is the fact that he's in 80 clutches and the fact that Tens and Zekin are at the top of the first kills and the regular kills and just all of those stats tells me that the man is putting his star players in the right positions.
Yeah. I mean, Tens was playing Omen, but I'll be honest, he's basically just a duelist for them. Like,
yeah. Or when he was on KO and he's just flashing himself through Viper walls and stuff. Just
yeah, that's true.
Like, oh, I'm basically Phoenix.
Yeah. I mean, for most of the maps, they just paired Zekin and Tens up together, which makes sense, obviously. You're kind of putting your 2 most mechanically skilled players together and just letting them just roll over the enemy team. Like,
yeah, well,
it works for them, clearly. So
Zelsus and Saucy right behind with all those assists, pulling it out. And Tens on the Omen. Of course, he's going to rack up a bunch of assists from his smokes, but also with all the flashes and blinds he's throwing. So he definitely had a standout. I would say that he's probably the second most notable player after John because, you know, he won 8 out of 30 clutches. That's not as many as John by a long margin, but it's a much higher percentage.
It is,
that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, almost 30% win rate for clutches is pretty high, especially at that level.
Nuts.
Like, that is not easy to do. Not at all.
Speaking of which, Lakia, player that several people I know were really dogging on going into this event, showed up and got over a 30% clutch rate.
Yeah.
Man did not get many kills this event, I'll tell you that much.
No, he didn't. I was just about to say that. People were clowning him because statistically he wasn't doing that good, right? It wasn't getting many kills, dying a lot. But over 30% clutch rate, like, this guy's winning the rounds they need to win, right? Yeah.
Exactly, like, that's why he's there.
He's the one who's going to swing the game around for them. And it makes a difference. I mean, Jinggg made it to finals, right? So you can't make it to finals if one of your players really is dead weight.
Exactly.
You just can't.
Exactly. And there's a difference between eco kills and impact kills, you know? And he's clearly getting the ones that matter. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not about how many times you kill him. It's about winning rounds.
Yeah.
So, it's also interesting because he's one of the only Jinggg players even on this list.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. Most of it's just Paper X, Loud, there's some EDG players as well.
Yeah, there's a couple of odd players to show up, like Can getting 30 kills, and KC has some big numbers in there. Martine and Narrate particularly showing up.
Yeah.
But we've got Texture with 54 first kills and Lakia with the best clutch percentage in the entire tournament. Like,
yeah, I mean, still pretty huge, right? That again, they made it to finals, right? Like,
they did.
Good reason for it.
But they clearly didn't do it off of stardom, you know?
No,
they had players that people were raving about, let's be honest, but it wasn't like they did it because somebody was boosting them. You know, I mean, you look at the stats here and you clearly see that all of KC's wins probably Narrate's doing, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's something I like.
Put in work.
NA lost out on him, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
This guy was originally an NA player. And no team wanted to pick him up. Or maybe he just didn't get a chance to play on a team. Maybe he didn't vibe with any of them. Whatever the case may be. And then he goes on Carmine Core and he's just destroying people. I mean, in their match against Na'Vi recently, he dropped a 1v5 clutch.
That's
on
and,
bind,
and
and it
and that is
is
crazy.
like being able to pull a 1v5 like that is crazy, right? Like
Yeah, it is.
this guy could have been an NA player.
Well, he
I
could have
mean,
been, but I mean, I think a lot of cases it's about the systems, right? Because I think a lot of the players on this list, obviously, we look at the Loud and the PRX players, and we're like, oh yeah, these are great players on great teams. But when you look at the other players on this list, right? You got Sentinels, which did a full roster rebuild under a new coaching staff. You have Jinggg, which did a full roster rebuild under a new coaching staff. And you have Carmine Core, which did a full roster rebuild under a new coaching staff. And it's
yeah,
like,
that's
okay,
true.
well, they found somebody to put in charge of this organization, and that person built a system that worked.
Yeah, that's fair.
And when you
Yeah,
look at Loud and PRX and even EDG to a degree, it's like they're defending their status because they didn't make any major moves.
that's true. That's
They
true.
they had something strong, and then you've got the newcomers. I mean, a coach with a horrible record got picked up for Genji's new roster. They dropped everybody except I think it was Meteor.
It was Meteor. Yeah.
Yeah, and he brought in the new coach brought in Lakia from his previous team, and then built the squad up from players that were honestly underappreciated on second-rate teams within the APAC region. And then Tens, who a lot of people didn't believe in, John coming out of Challengers. There's a huge story there too. Zelsis the sub,
Yeah.
for the guy
Yeah,
who
a lot
was
of
there to
people
sell jerseys, right? Like Zelsis
Yeah.
just showed up and filled the shoes out and burst out the end.
As much as I feel bad for Pancata, of course, a lot of people were kind of saying it was the wrong move. Like, oh, Pancata's not playing for them anymore. Zealous is kind of a clown on stream, which he is, but
But they needed that.
yeah, I mean, you're watching them just play, and this guy's hyping them up when they're playing.
So much.
Like, and he's dropping numbers too. Like, this guy, she's
is.
performing really well. Like,
Well, 172
definitely,
assists is no joke, right?
yeah, I mean,
Playing exclusively Flash Initiator and Sentinel.
yeah. You can definitely tell he's kind of like a pillar for the team, right? Like, this guy's really just supporting them in that way. But yeah, I mean, I kind of feel bad for Pancata again, but it is what it is, I guess. To be honest, Sentinel still won. Pancata, I'm sure he's going to find another team, but
Yeah, well, and I heard that he had said he didn't particularly want to jump into a team right away.
yeah. Well, apparently he had health issues, which is why he stopped playing originally.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then I guess once Zelsis kind of started performing with the team in the off season, Sentinels may have realized. Yeah, I mean, it's if your team's performing that well, then why make a change?
There are several teams I've heard too that want Pancata, not only for the jersey sales, but because he's a good player and because of that.
Yeah,
he had said no. He said he wasn't really looking at the moment. So, which I can understand. I mean, FNS got dropped out, and there's many reasons for that. But I think some players, they get their shot at being pro. They perform. They go through that hard lifestyle. They build up their brand, they build up their image, and then they get to move into a more relaxed realm where they're streaming, they're content creating, they're doing watch parties, and they're making tons of money doing that. And it's more sustainable than a professional career, in all honesty. And I think some of them, they're okay with that. They might decide like,
oh
hey,
yeah,
this is good for me.
I mean, again, like you said, the stability of it and the money is probably a pretty nice package, right? Like,
on the
subject, we got Sam and FNS who are just streaming till 4 a.m. Yeah, I mean, we're fine, right? Like, they're making money, they're vibing, they're doing watch parties, they're playing ranked together. Like, it's probably a lot less stressful than it is to play, tournaments and stuff.
For sure. But then you got some players that can't stay away. On the subject of that, Jinggg is back, and PRX is better than ever, man.
Yeah, I mean, Monyet was great. I'll be honest. It was his first ever tournament.
Salute for Monyet. He came in here, and the only stat he's got on the board is the second highest number of first deaths.
Yeah.
But that means that he was not afraid, you know?
No, he
And,
wasn't. I mean,
and when you're trying to fill Jingg's shoes, you can't be afraid.
no, you can't. I mean, Jingg's like the best Rays player in the world, at least in my opinion. Coming in
I
for
don't
your
think
first
anybody's
ever
gonna argue that.
tournaments, yeah, I mean, maybe after this tournament, people could argue Zekin is a close second, right? Or Jogamo still, because he won champs playing Rays. Um, but like, first ever tournament, and he comes in to replace Jinggg. I mean, listen, I don't know. That's a lot of pressure. I gotta
It
be
is,
honest. Like,
but
and he still did well. I mean, they made it to
his
semis, right?
team
Like,
was top 3,
yeah,
right?
like
PRX got top 3, and everybody was like, "Ah, they're not the same without Jinggg. They can't do it without Jinggg," you know. So credit where
King
credit's
is
due.
back.
Yet put up a hell of a performance, but yeah, the king. I mean, what are you gonna do, man? Like it's Jinggg, you
Yeah,
know.
I mean,
It's Jinggg.
I don't know. I
You
wouldn't be
don't.
too heartbroken if I woke up one
Yeah.
day and I get told, like, listen, man,
Like I'm sorry, Muffin, you're great, but we're bringing in Jinggg, and we're all swapping everybody so that we can bring in
hey,
Jinggg.
you know what? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
do it.
go for it.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, I
uh,
mean, it's. I mean, I've watched They played a few matches since he's come back, and like, the difference
they
is
beat
massive. I gotta be
they beat
honest.
Jinggg and they looked
Yeah,
crazy good doing it, right? And it's not
yeah,
like Jinggg looked any worse than they did when they were dominating everything before. You know,
yeah. I mean, Jingg's just back. There's not much else to say. This guy's just,
that's
you know.
he definitely brings something to the team that we don't fully understand on the
Oh
outside.
yeah,
That's
I
for
mean,
sure. Because everybody looks more comfortable, more clean, more confident. So
yeah. I'm convinced that he has the most fun out of anybody playing the game. This guy
he
just
might
runs people down, and he just kills them, and
probably he
he's just
probably
vibing.
does.
I think it's a big reason why Paper X is good as a team. To be honest, like they seem to just have a lot of fun. Like they have a few comms videos that have come out on their YouTube channel for Paper X, and you listen to them talk and talk to each other in game.
Hmm.
They sound like they're having a good time. I gotta be honest, like
You definitely
genuinely,
want
like
to.
yeah. I mean, it's my favorite team for a reason. I'm gonna glaze them a little bit here, but
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I
it's
can't blame you for it, right? It's
yeah. I
hard for
mean,
me because all 3 of my favorite teams are in the same region, with the exception of Liquid, which lives on in my heart, just not on my leaderboard.
yeah. I don't know about that one, buddy.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
I support the org, but they're in a tough spot over there in EU.
well, they're doing kind of good in CS, I guess. So you got that to hang on to, but
Yeah, yeah, they
yeah,
did, lose to the tournament champions. So,
it's
but
something you can.
they did it in playoffs, which is
That's yeah, yeah.
it's okay.
Hey,
They're
at
the
least they
best
made it to
Quake player
playoffs.
ever.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I
But
mean, yeah, I mean, if we look at just the statistics for duelists and stuff, like it's pretty insane. I got to be honest with you. Like, I mean, obviously the obvious one to talk about is Zekin, being on the winning team and stuff. This guy was
yeah,
crazy. Like,
I mean,
he's really young. For how young he is into like the tier 1 scene and stuff, he's just raised different people. He's just doing
well,
incredible. Like,
he's got nothing to fear because he's yet to be properly sat down. Except we can't bring up conversations of good duelists, raises, and being sat down. And Zekin, without talking about the fact that Sentinels lost 0-2 to Leviathan, with Aspis dropping 47 kills in a map,
yeah,
bro.
yeah, the most kills in a
Is
single map ever. Yeah,
ever, dude. Homeboy woke
yeah.
up and took it personal.
I mean, what can you do? Like you're playing a
Lose,
game,
I guess.
overtime. You press tab, you see this guy's got 47 kills. All right, guys. I mean,
And what's crazy again is going back to the whole conversation before. It was like Aspis versus John Cutie, because Zekin and Tens were getting dunked on in that
yeah,
map. They were
yeah, they
getting
were. Yeah,
completely trashed.
they did not have a fun time. They really did not have
No,
a fun time.
which means that the rounds that they were winning were coming from clutches. out of the boys in the back, out of John. Again, always in the clutch and managing to pull it out. Probably because Aspis was dead, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just
you look at some of the rounds, like obviously he did get a lot of like anti-eco kills, padding the stats, maybe, sure, whatever. But like
yeah, but at the same time,
47 kills is 47 kills, right?
it
Like
is.
it doesn't
people
matter if it's all
underestimate
ecos. Like
those anti-eco kills too, because it keeps your eco clean for the whole team, right? If you drop 3 guys against sheriffs or against specters or against classics, hell, even worse, if you lose a round to a buy like that, your eco is in the garbage and the enemy team's is going up so much. But you get a round where you keep 4 or 5 guns alive because one guy is able to go out and kill 4 or 5 people. That is so that like it's wild that the game went to overtime. You know?
oh
it is
yeah,
wild that
I
the
mean
game
it's
made it all the way to overtime because
I
it
mean, it
should
went
have
to what?
completely buried.
I think they won 19-17, something
38
like that.
rounds of Valorant, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's a long game. That is a
Oh.
long game, and it's even better too. Like he's playing Raze, so getting those eco kills, say he got 3 on the anti-eco, that gets him closer to his ults, right?
Which
That's a
is
pretty huge
unlike
ult. Like
yeah.
yeah,
It's one of the better duelist ults to get on a full buy, you know?
mhm, yeah,
Like jet knives, you want to kind of use those when you're stuck on a low eco situation or when you're wanting to pull out the operator, which you can definitely do. But Raze Rocket is a round winning ultimate no matter the buy.
mhm.
So getting that more frequently is
And
definitely
that's
impactful.
this is another thing. Like he doesn't op. This guy only rifles, and he's dropping that many kills. Like
How you got to do it
he,
when you're playing Raze to a degree, but
yeah, but like a lot of players that drop a lot of kills, normally kind of buy an op, right? You got when the chamber meta was happening,
Kang
it was
Kang,
basically just an op
yay.
meta, right? Yeah, Kang, right? Um, but he does an op. I don't think he used an op a single time on that Lotus map when he dropped 47 kills. He just bought rifle.
No.
I mean,
Well, and on Lotus too, it's just way better to put her on your weak side player, right?
that's true.
Um,
That's true.
So there's map meta stuff in there too. There's character meta stuff. Raze doesn't have the same quality of escape that other oppers have.
That's true.
So on and so forth. But also when you're killing 47 people in a game, rifle, why would you
Why would
not
you buy
buy
an
a
op?
rifle every round,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's only gonna slow him down, man. It's
That's
only
true.
gonna slow him
That's
down.
true.
So yeah, you want to roll out with that. But as high as the highs are, I think it was literally the next day. We got a day in APAC where in 2 separate series, a player dropped 0 kills in a map.
Yeah.
Jesse
That's a little,
Vash for Team Secret on Lotus with the Fade 0-17. They did not win that one. Surprise, surprise. Shocker.
Yeah, I mean, probably most people probably could have guessed that. Yeah, 0 kills is pretty rough.
It's hard to carry that, but it did happen in the next series where on Icebox, the Gecko for who was it? It was Flipsitter. Oh my goodness. Why can't I remember it? I know the player, but I can't remember the team that he plays for. I gotta go look it up. Of course, it's hard as hell to find, but why wouldn't it be? Oh, yeah, for RRQ.
Yeah, it was
That's right.
RRQ. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they won.
A bit of a tear until they run up into T1. But yeah, he on Icebox. He dropped 0 kills, and unlike Jesse, who actually went 0-17 and 11, getting his assists on the Fade, which, given the scoreline, might have been assist on every kill that happened in the game. Flipsitter got only 5 assists, He really contributed nothing except enemy alt charge. But
I mean,
he had a player go 30 and 10 on his team, so
yeah, I
that
mean,
worked out for him.
I know some people. Cat alert. I know some people.
It's the real concept.
Yeah, some people weren't really impressed because it is Bleed, and Bleed have kind of not been living up to the hype. To be honest,
Right.
especially with Ye on their
is
team.
there hype? I mean, there's hype for Ye, but Ye hasn't been relevant in a little while.
That's true, but you have players like Scary and Zest who have,
Zest was on
some
a good
pretty
team,
good. Yeah, I mean,
but
Scary was
also a team
arguably
that,
one of the best players on his old team as well.
yeah, but DRX wasn't a team that had like stars. Zest was just another guy in a lineup of a team that had just arguably the best teamwork of any.
That's true. That's true.
Arguably still
mean,
do.
Yeah, I mean, him and RB were like one of my favorite, I guess, duos when they were still playing together. They were
Yeah,
just super fun to watch. I mean, I gotta
not a
say, I
thing
don't
anymore.
know Aretla or Darion very well as players. I don't know anything
Yeah.
about them. But still, with Ye, Zest, and Scary, I think a lot of people were expecting a bit more from that team.
Well, I
What
mean,
they've been
anything
performing.
more would be something, right?
That's true. Yeah.
They literally have 2 map wins. And well, I mean, they're performing the same as global esports. But
I don't know if that's something to brag about, but
no, not at all.
yeah, I mean, 2 maps, 1 is not very good. I got to be honest.
No.
Really not.
No, out of 8. That's, not it.
Yeah,
But these are the teams at the bottom.
that's
How
true.
about the teams at the top? Is there anybody who's standing out to you? I mean, in the APAC region, I think it's the most interesting one to talk about personally. Like I said, 3 of my favorite teams are in here.
I mean, I gotta say, you have kind of changed my mind on Jinggg a little bit.
They look good, right?
But they do look good. Yeah, I genuinely didn't
Look
think
good.
they'd even make it. To the group stage, or past group stage rather.
Yeah.
And they made it to finals, upper bracket. Like,
I should have won. They
um,
just couldn't hold it together. They just fell apart. Meteor imploded.
Meteor, yeah,
Texture kind of slid off. It's just Munch getting Karen basically against the whole world because Lakia can only heal people in clutches. It's like it's kind of fell over and died. But
yeah, it was an unfortunate end for them. But to be honest, I think it
I think
proves
that was
that APAC is a pretty
yeah.
much stronger region than people give them credit for, right? I think a lot of people just thought of like Paper Rex for APAC, right?
Well, and of course, when you see teams like Global Esports and Detonation Focus Me, you're like, the region is kind of a meme, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
Paper X, DRX, Jinggg, all 3 of those teams are good.
they are.
Even DFM, who haven't been
DRX
incredibly
is the
well.
only team 3-0 in the region currently.
That's true. Yeah.
And they have had the hardest opponents, and they have dropped the least number of maps. With the exception of the Jinggg versus Paper X matchup, which already happened, so Paper X got that one out of the way, but
Yeah. But it's definitely a region that I think is going to be on more people's radars. I gotta say, like, I know there's a lot of I guess, Twitch chat memes of people saying like 1-team regions.
yeah.
I don't think that's the case for Paper X anymore.
No,
Paper X,
definitely
Jesus,
not.
APAC, sorry, anymore.
Well, that's definitely not. I mean,
yeah,
DRX and Paper X were always kind of at the top, but the fact that there's another team that can really compete with them, and T1 have had a rough start, but they're looking pretty okay, I would say, all things considered. They've had a lot of 1-2s, but I think that there's some potential there. I think their ideas are bad, but I think that their players are good.
I'd agree with that.
Good.
Yeah.
So, maybe if they make a staff change, they could have that same kind of revitalization that Jinggg got.
Yeah, I mean I think they're what, top 3 right now in their division, which
Yeah,
again,
one
I
in
mean,
three. Their division
yeah,
has global
it's
esports and Bleed at 0-3. So
yeah, that's fair. That's
they're
fair.
struggling. That group is apparently the Farmers League because
Yeah,
everybody in the other group is positive and they're still in a relegation zone. That is tough.
yeah. I
But
mean,
it's that I don't want to get too much into the format. It's the weirdest one I've ever seen, and let me tell you, I watch every esport known to man. If you want proof, I watched EVE Online championships. Okay, I literally sit down and watch any esport. I didn't even know it was a thing. All right, and I
I
still
don't
was
know it was a
like,
thing until 10
"Huh,
seconds ago. So
that's neat." I sat and watched it for 3 days. I watched it. So I think yeah, it's definitely a weird format, but I think within the format, I think DRX is positioned in the best spot for APAC, and I think DRX is going to win. I do, actually.
okay, interesting.
It'll be interesting to see their matchup against Jinggg, but I think that they have looked the cleanest. They made a roster change themselves, supposedly due to personal reasons, but I think the team looks a lot better, and it's so well rounded. It's their baseline is so high. You're never gonna get a map where they show up and they just don't perform. Like Jinggg versus Paper X, the series was close right up until Bind, and then Paper X put up a 10-2 defense, and it's like, okay, well, the floor on Jinggg has been proven to still be kind of down, even if they don't see it very often. And I think that Paper X is really volatile, which can be very
Yeah,
good for them, but it can also be very bad for them against a team that's really well disciplined and can hang, and
yeah. I
consistently
mean,
find themselves in strategic situations.
yeah. I mean, what Paper X are really good at, in my opinion at least, is finding like an isolated player and just dumping utility on them, getting the kills, and then just overloading anybody else who's maybe on his side of the map. I
Yeah.
think the reason why Sentinels may have won against them is just because Sentinels is so much more structured, right? Like they just know how to play
Well,
against it properly.
I mean, like we talked about, they had a clear strong side and it was always in the right place, and they were always grouped. Like it's easy to isolate a guy and kill him, but when those guys are Zek and Tens punched up together with Celsius right behind him, like it becomes a much harder game to play.
Hmm.
Paper X's style into. So, but
That's
yeah,
true.
I think that for the APAC region, DRX has got to be my front runner.
I I'm still in Paper X boat. I'm gonna be honest. They're my favorite team, right?
I
Um,
think that that'll be the finals. I do.
I would agree with that actually. Yeah.
I think that that'll be the finals for the
Especially
region.
with the king being back, Jing himself.
Yeah,
I have hope. They made it top 3 without Jing. He's back now. I
and
think
they
they're in a
look
good
better
spot.
than ever, man.
Yeah, that's true. I would say for NA, I'm gonna say NRG or Leviathan.
Energy or Leviathan?
Yeah,
Man, you were out here with some dark horse picks, bro.
yeah.
Like, yeah, Sentinels is so good. They're so structured. They're so sexy. NRG is definitely going to win. And the second place team is definitely this random Latam International squad.
I mean, the
Right?
reason I
Like,
say that is because the ceiling for the players on Leviathan is so high, right? Like all of those players have done incredibly well, but the only reason why they're not my top team is because, to be quite
because
honest
their
with you, like,
floor is so low. Like, they could
yeah,
just
yeah,
not be there one day.
yeah.
You know?
Like if
Like, I can
Aspas didn't
get
drop
behind.
47 kills,
Where are they in that game? They're not. They're not
yeah,
in
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So it's. I think Loud is always a safe pick, but the way that Energy's been playing, I'm actually ready to back that camp. They look fired up, like they're trying to reclaim some glory.
Yeah, I mean
So
they have enough games to play before Shanghai where they can, I guess, really work on some things they may have, and then kind of, I guess, almost play at their best, if you will, in
yeah, I mean
Shanghai if they make it.
they're 2-0 up. They're 4-0. One of those was a 13-2 win versus Loud. on a map that Loud
Yeah.
looked pretty good on in Masters Madrid. Of course, that means that there's a lot of footage to review and they can counter strat, but you got smart players that play together well. They've got clutch potential. It's a good team. I can't say that
I
it's
mean,
not, right?
on paper, it's probably the best team, right? All of their
Yeah,
players are major winners. Some of them are champions winners.
true.
Like it's
True. It definitely is a team that was built for success. So,
yeah.
um, I'm excited to see how they do, but I think that they should definitely be a contender, if nothing else. Do we need to talk about China? Best team in China? Anybody? Going once, going twice? Kang taking the gold again?
I mean, yeah.
Is there
I can't think of anybody else. I gotta be honest. Unless Billy make a run.
You know what's crazy about China though is that Trace Esports, which was a team that knocked Billy out of playoffs, and is currently winning all of their games in Group Omega, is a VCL team.
Really?
China.
I didn't know that.
Direct promotion. They made playoffs, lost to EDG in the final, I think. No, FPX made it in the final because FPX won. Yeah, so they lost to they lost a round earlier than that. But yeah, Trace Esports, a promoted team.
That's kind of wild
in China out of nowhere. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, especially because the Chinese teams, they're like FPX and Billy are major orgs. Like they could have bought good players, but no, here's this random VCL team showing up and showing out. So maybe they become contenders. Maybe FPX wakes up, and Autumn is a great player. So
Autumn is insane. Yeah. Gotta be honest.
There's definitely potential there, but again, it always comes back to that. All right, well, where's their floor at? How bad can they be? And EDG, at their worst, like they've still got 2 guys dropping 30, and they might have a couple guys in there dropping single-digit kills. That's a thing, but Kang and one of the other guys is gonna go crazy almost every time. And I think they know really well how to be like, oh, well, this guy's also having a game. Like, you two go fight, and we'll just die. Good.
I mean, Kang, in my opinion, is the best opera in the world.
I don't think anybody can argue with that. But if they want to, we can just go and start pulling up highlight reels. I would say that Saya player might be better, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
That's a dark horse pick too. I will admit
that is very much a dark horse pick.
I'm a little biased from my Overwatch days when he was the only guy who could play Widowmaker in a league that was dominated by dive. So
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Kang's my goat.
He's crazy.
For China, I definitely say EDG still. It's pretty unsurprising, right? It's, I guess, what most people would expect as a pick.
Yeah.
Favorites. Maybe Billy, but I'm just gonna go with EDG.
Last time. Yeah, EDG is just they're actually like a good team.
Yeah.
But we saved the most interesting region for last. I don't think anybody can argue that EMEA is more competitive than it has ever been. And
that
maybe more so than it will ever be again.
That's true. Yeah. I don't know. I used to be a Fnatic fanboy. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna say Carmine Core.
Carmine Core. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carmine Core currently 2-2, not boasting the most impressive record.
They're not
group stage so far.
But I genuinely just.
Narrate is crazy, right? Like we kind of established that.
Yeah. I'm just really impressed by their players, to be honest. A completely new team. They managed to do pretty well against some pretty respectable teams. So.
Well, I mean, they made it to Masters Madrid. They almost made playoffs, right? Like,
yeah, true.
They definitely were the best EMEA team up until this new, start of Stage 1, I guess is what it's called. I don't know the terminology that Valorant is using specifically because I watch so many esports. They got seasons,
it is Stage 1
and stages, and
it
all starts to blend together. But I think what's interesting for me about the KC is like they've beaten the teams that they. Well, okay, so they beat GX, sure, right? And they beat M8, sure, all right. But they lost to FUT, which is arguably the team with the highest ceiling in the whole league. And I have
Yeah.
it on some insider information. Basically, I know a guy who knows a guy that claims that Mr. Fallen on FUT is the best IGL in all of EU.
Interesting. Okay.
So, that's a team that's constantly on the radar for EU teams. He's like, if the Turkish guys could just stop throwing the game, then they would win every game because they're insane. And they throw the game because they are insane, and so they just do things that are weird. So if they could rein it in to a more PRX level, then they might just be the best team in Europe. Is kind of what everybody's got on their radar. But the other one that's really crazy is Na'Vi beat KC and Liquid. And, some people are like, well, I wasn't really all that impressed with Liquid. And some people are like, well, yeah, they beat KC, but it was a close series or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, Na'Vi is the team that everybody wrote off as old men.
That's true.
Na'Vi was that team that everybody was like, yeah, they're there. But are they going to do anything? I don't think so. But I think all these guys kind of took that personally.
I mean, Angel's pretty goated. I'm gonna be honest.
Look, if you ignore the age of these players, the roster is crazy. All right.
Yeah.
And I think if you add in the factor of these players, I don't have to explain this to you. I know there's a huge stigma about, oh, well, you're going to be 26 and you're basically a dinosaur in esports, right? You can't play. Your arms shrivel up and your bones crack and your teeth fall out of your head because you played video games for 10 years straight, and that's it. Your life is over at 27. No, that's definitely not the case, right? The best rifler in CS2 right now is Rain. He's in his 30s. The best IGL is Kerrigan. He's in his 30s. There's just so many players.
Yeah,
Raph is the best Quake player of all time. He's in his 30s. Half of the StarCraft GSL playoffs was players in their 30s returned from military service. Right? It's proven that it's not about your age. It's about, well, is this what you really want? And I think that Na'Vi decided this is what we really want.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people were clowning on them because, for the most part, if Angel pulls off some really weird plays sometimes, especially on Omen, if he wasn't, performing very well, they tend to lose.
It's that risk reward.
Yeah. And if he was having a good game, then they were unstoppable, right? This guy would just walk in, kill a bunch of people, and game's over. Like you said, I think you just took that personally because they've been kind of on a hot streak, right?
Yeah. I mean, people can say what they want, but I think we can establish that Carmine Core and Liquid are good teams with lots of support and clear, they have a vision and a system in place, and they can play.
Yeah.
And part of this is admittedly my Liquid bias, but part of this is just the fact that I know that they can perform. Liquid's another team that has high highs and low lows, but you look at this roster, it's like Kiko's a revelation, Nats and Yampy are both very, very good. Enzo's got this great pedigree coming out of ECL, right? There's somebody that you would expect maybe not to be amazing right away, but to build into some big shoes. And yeah, Na'Vi just, even in the series versus Liquid, they were down 4-10 on split, playing attack on split. Looking at the series loss, in map 2, and they brought that back, and then they won the next map. So clearly they've got just great mental fortitude.
I think in the game against Carmine Core, on Bind, they were down. I think they only had 3 rounds, or they had 4 rounds, sorry. Carmine Core had 7, and that's the round that Narrate got a 1v5 to win Carmine Core the half 8-4. Going into a new half after losing a 1v5 or a 5v1, and you lost the half 4-8 is a pretty depressing feeling. I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
And they managed to pull through and they won the series, right?
They did. They were able to wipe it off and start over.
It takes experience to be able to just say, all right, you know what?
it's over.
We just trolled. It is what
Yeah,
it
like,
is, right? Like
it's yeah.
he was 20 HP. All 5 of us died. It is what it is. Whatever, right? Next half, new map. Let's finish the series out, and they did.
They did,
So
absolutely.
it's
And
again, like you
convincingly.
said, yeah, yeah. It speaks volumes to just how good that team is and how good the players are individually.
And they were the team that picked Bind, and
Yeah.
they lose that map. They're 7-13, and so they come back facing like in an uphill battle, right? They lost a map in not a particularly close game. It's like kind of close, but not really.
Yeah.
13-7, you lost. It's not
You
negotiable.
lost quite a few gun rounds, right? Like
yeah, one half did not go your way for sure.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
that's that 8-4 you're talking about, and but no, they come back into the opponent's map. They win it 13-7, and then they go into the decider and they win that one 13-6. And it's like, what do you say to that, right? Like you can doubt as much as you want, but clearly they're here to play.
Oh yeah.
This isn't a team that looks like they're going to fall off. It's more the fact that what we're impressed by is their resilience. So if they were to start sucking in the last half of the season or stage, that would be more surprising, I think, than continued success.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. That being said, though, I'm still on the Carmine Core boat.
I think that
Not necessarily because I think they're the best team, but because I hope that they do well, right? Like I genuinely just want them to do well,
we haven't even talked about Team Heretics, right? The other
That's
team
true.
to make
That's
it to
true.
Masters Madrid, the team that I think many have said has the highest ceiling when they play all on the same page. I know somebody who's been in scrims versus many of the tier 1 teams, and he said that Heretics is by far the absolute best scrim demons. It's just those stage nerves, and their team is really young. So if they peak at the right time and they show up when it matters, they're a contender too. So we're already looking at 4 teams. Fut and Liquid are sitting on the outside of that, staring in like we could do this too. That's 6 teams. And the best part about that is that Heretics, Navi, and Fut are in one group. Liquid, KC, and Fnatic are in the other group.
Yeah.
That could be the 6 teams that go into the playoffs for EMEA, and then who do you pick, right?
That's true. Yeah. I mean, like you said, probably the most competitive that region has been ever.
I think it's the most
honest.
competitive region, period, by far.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think
I can see an argument for that too. Yeah.
Are so closely matched.
Yeah,
because there are so many teams that just I would say that there are 6 teams that beat the other 5 teams, but not crazy convincingly, right? PBL, Vitality, Giant X, Koi, Gentlemates, they're all showing signs of life, and Giant X and Koi are the only ones that haven't gotten a win yet, but Koi played Liquid, and then they played BBL, so that's one of those that probably a toss up. But it's definitely got the tightest range between top and bottom.
Yeah, oh for sure. You're not wrong there. I mean, like you said, Team Heretics, they surprised me too, I gotta be honest, at Madrid. It was one of those teams where I kind of go through the list of all the teams that were there, and I see Team Heretics, I'm like,
okay.
All right, just more fodder for Sentinels to go through, I guess, right?
You guys got your plane tickets already, right? You bought them in advance to save money,
Yeah, pretty much. And they just surprised me, I gotta be honest. Obviously Benji Fishy was a Fortnite pro. Then he swaps to Valorant and he's doing really good.
He's just thinking faster than everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, in his PRX game, he stood up and started yelling at Monye. I don't exactly remember what he was saying, but it was pretty funny. It was awesome to see that kind of confidence, right? Especially against Paper X.
You kind of have
pretty
to
good team, right?
Paper X. That's the only
true.
way you stay in those games.
Yeah.
So, maybe he knows that coming from Fortnite, being successful there. Maybe he understands that and is able to bring that to the rest of the team that's kind of young and developing
Yeah,
around
that's
him.
fair. Yeah. Which is crazy because he's still pretty young, right? Like he's in his early 20s and he's
Yeah, but like in CS, Modesty is 19 and he's done everything that there is to do in CS. So
That's true. That's true.
sometimes it's about sometimes it's about what you've been through and what you've experienced. But I think one of the things about Na'Vi that makes them such a contender for me over the other guys, because there are so many teams that could get it, is that I think in EU there's more volatility than some of the other regions have from the top teams, right? So like when you look at Paper X and DRX, when you look at NRG and Sentinels, they're not going to just throw games, right? They're pretty solid. Their skill floor is higher than, like, decidedly higher than several teams.
Mm-hmm.
There are several teams that they just won't lose to.
Yeah.
But then
I'd agree with that.
In EMEA, I'm not sure that any team is untouchable. I think that the bottom teams can peak and the top teams can dip in a way that causes an upset for any series. And Navi's proven ability to overcome the deficits that they've been in lets me know that they're going to be a little safer from that upset potential. And,
yeah, that's fair.
So then when it gets to playoff times, it's the question of like, okay, well, we're out of the upset potential. We've made it to playoffs. We're locked in here. We're in this position to win this thing. What's our peak? Can we beat somebody dropping 47 kills if Keiko was going to go off and have a 36 kill map, or
can you beat Aspas when he's just
walking
your team
you're
over,
in this situation, if Durka just has a game against you, are you competitive still? Do you have the players to measure up to that? That's the question that I think is going to get answered in playoffs. And if they do have somebody who's going to step up and really just match blow for blow against some of the heavy hitters in the EMEA region, like Narrate as another example, then I think that they've got just a stronger baseline of consistency than a lot of the other teams here do. And unlike Fnatic, which also has this consistent baseline, their playbook isn't chiseled into a rock that everybody can see.
That's true. Yeah. That's very good points, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I actually do have a friend who's a Koi fanboy.
Tough life.
Little
so
bit,
I'm a Liquid fanboy, and I'm not even picking them for the.
You're sending in a Liquid chair, right? Like
bro.
it's.
I am. Yeah, Team Liquid chair. Got my Team Liquid desk. I could go get my Team Liquid jersey. I've got a signed jacket. Several of the players, they're StarCraft players, but
You chose the wrong team to sit behind, brother.
At least in this game, I did. Hey, they beat Fnatic last year to go to champs, and by topping their region. So Liquid is a team that is they're an organization that is known for pulling it out when it really counts.
That
so
is
maybe
true.
they're
You're not
just
wrong.
saving it all for playoffs. I don't know.
No, we'll see about that. Maybe they'll pull off and win Shanghai, right?
That would be wild.
Maybe.
That would be wild. I'd be happy for them to win the region. I don't think there's any way that they win Shanghai because let's be honest, all right? We watched Masters Madrid and I called it from day one. I said NA and APAC for the playoffs. Only 4 teams get through out of the 2 from each region, and I knew that PRX and Jinggg and Sentinels and Loud were just better than all of the best teams of all the other regions. Nobody had anybody that could measure up as far as the way that I was seeing them play the game at that moment. Now, if we were to reevaluate and look at the games and the way that they're being played now, I think that maybe there's another team that could sneak in there. But I still think at the end of the day, EMEA might be the most competitive region, but I also think it's the weakest region.
I'm gonna agree with that, actually. Yeah.
I think that EDG is better than any team in this region.
I would also agree with that. Yeah. I mean, earlier I mentioned the one team region
Mhm.
memes.
Yeah,
They're a many team region, but none of them are really
none of
competitive
them are
internationally,
dominant, right?
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't
So
step up to that extra stage. I think that it's kind of like the reverse of the CS paradox, where in CS in North America, your practice games are just horrible. So when you go to these international events, you're like basically what you do is you do a 2 week boot camp to the event before the event so that you can play all these teams and get good practice so that hopefully you can become really good in that 2 weeks as an NA team in CS. That's kind of your goal. And I think when you look at Valorant, the NA region and the Latin and South America contribution to that, because the Americas is the whole hemisphere. It's literally half the planet.
yeah,
Um, right? They
yeah,
all kind of have the same region as far as gameplay goes, so they get really quality practice because they get a really good depth of teams. And
yeah.
they all have
Okay.
to compete against each other because when you look at like VCL Americas, that is huge. There's
Hmm.
3 regions for
Yeah.
VCL: LATAM, Brazil, and North America. And so the competition is really high because everybody's playing everybody for a really small number of slots. And then you look at the APAC region and China, they're literally right next to each other, bro. Like APAC includes everything that's right below China. Like all of it
Yeah.
is all right there. So all these guys are playing each other. And
Oh
while
yeah, for
APAC
sure.
is pretty broken up, and I think the bottom end of their tier one scene kind of reflects that. Um, and China's really isolated, and I think that the bottom end of their tier one scene reflects that. Um, the interregional gameplay and competition that they no doubt get has got to be really good, So the top teams there, they're playing as the much better competition. They're playing against much better teams. But in EU, you've got so many regional subdivisions. It's like Denmark and Germany and Austria all have one, and then France has one, and then Spain and Portugal have one, and I think Italy has their own, and then there's like a couple of the Balkans. There's so many, right?
That is crazy.
And
Yeah.
within those little pockets of Valorant challengers level, they're only really playing each other. And so you get the best teams out of those and they go together and they haven't really played each other as well. I think that the practice is just I don't think it's there. Because also from that Europe, North America, the EMEA, region, right? Europe, Middle East, and Africa, or Asia, whatever. Can't remember or Asia, but that pocket,
Hmm.
they don't really get to play anybody else. You know,
Yeah. I mean,
you can't play Valorant on 150 ping to North America and call that good practice, right? It's not like Dota
yeah.
where in Europe you play a game on 150 ping and it's still good practice. It's not the same. It's not the same. So they're really isolated from other
Yeah.
regions.
I mean, that's definitely something that can affect a team, right? Especially again in international events.
Hmm.
It definitely shows what teams have better prep, and practice falls right into that, right? Like,
Yeah.
most of the teams, like again, teams like Carmine Core and Team Heretics, they did really well, but I think the differences were pretty big in some cases, right? Um, you watch Team Heretics when they were playing Sunset. Forget who they were playing against exactly, actually, but they were on a post plant on a site, and you can tell that they were not organized. It was pretty
Yeah.
late into the game. Maybe nerves were kind of getting along. Their structure was kind of
Probably.
falling apart. And you go to a team like Sentinels, their retakes, their post plants were just
Hmm.
consistently good
Hmm.
throughout every single map, throughout every single match, series, everything. It was just good. No matter what the score of the map was, they were
They did
just.
throw 4 post plants in a row on the same site to Loud by having
It did.
no organization. But they fixed it when they
Mhm.
played Sunset later versus PRX in the event, and it's that ability to turn it around.
Yeah.
I think you also get the more diverse gameplay styles from the other regions though. I think Europe has like EMEA has the most defined regional style
I would agree with that
of
too. Yeah.
anybody. And
Yep.
normally in other esports it's China because China exists in this little bubble isolated from everything. And so their style is completely unique to them, and nobody else. Well, the problem is that nobody else knows what it is because they're not watching Chinese broadcasts. But everybody's watching Europe, and all the European teams play the same style. Whereas if you go to a VCT Americas, half your teams are Latin and Brazilian. You've got tons of international players from south of the border, and let me tell you, if anybody who's watched CS knows, Brazilian Counter-Strike and American Counter-Strike are not the same game.
No, they're not. No.
Got those players bringing that into Valorant and mixing it together, you're going to end up with a more complete team, because Valorant is an international rosters game. It's defined by this diversity, and so you've got a just more complete game within that region. And I'm a Dota fan, so I watch a lot of Southeast Asian Dota because it's highly entertaining, because it's this mixture of epic plays and huge throws. But I know that the Southeast Asia region has got a pretty distinct style for the games that they play. But because of the VCT situation in APAC, they're playing the Chinese teams, and they're playing the Korean teams, and the Korean style and the Chinese style and the Southeast Asian style. They're all mixing together. And so the teams that are coming out of that, like PRX, for example, a more complete team, more diverse. They can play other ways when the game calls on it. They're not just a one-trick run-it-down team like everybody makes fun of them for, and everybody's like, oh, it's Korean Flash and Dash, It's like, yeah, they like to play aggressively, but you watch them play a slow round, and it's not like they're bad at it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the biggest reason for Fnatic's downfall when they were kind of the, I guess, dynasty team, for Valorant, is because they didn't change their playstyle, right? They only had this, cross-map, slow default, and then a team like Paper X would just take one lane, 5 people, take the site, and just like, all right, I mean, round's over, right? The last 3 guys go save. It's a 3v5. Like,
well, and when you see something on Paper X, it's a confusing name to use. When you see a player on Paper X, you don't know where anybody else is, right? Finding Forsaken doesn't tell you anything about the map at all. Whereas if you see Boaster or Durka at any point during your game versus Fnatic, you've downloaded their entire... The only thing you got to find is Alphier. You're like, where's he? Because he'll kill us all if we don't know where he's at. But otherwise, everything else is done. Like, we only need to know one piece of information, and we know everything because they play the same way. But how are they supposed to play a different way when they don't get good practice against international teams? And when the format and the league and whatnot prevents, like, these international boot camps. Because, in CS, your tournaments are all over the place. There's big breaks between them, You'll take, like, a month off, and you'll play a couple online qualifiers during it, and then you'll show up to another major LAN event and play that, But so you can do your online qualifiers from your boot camp in Utrecht, Netherlands, on your Liquid team, even though it's an NA team based in NA. They can still do their boot camp at the EU facility for 2 weeks before, while they're doing their online qualifiers. If they qualify, great, they're already in Europe. And if they don't, then, damn, that sucks. We'll stay an extra week. We'll play against all the teams that are in this event, and then we'll go home.
Yeah.
And the formatting for Valorant doesn't really enable that kind of opportunity. And again, it's not a game where you can just cross-region practice. I mean, Raynor is winning the StarCraft 2 spring qualifying championship right now from Korea in the Europe region.
That's pretty
he's
crazy.
Playing the Europe region, which means he's playing the European ping by definition, unless the players are kind enough to swap back and forth between maps with him. But he's doing it on 220 ping from Korea, winning everything. Because in StarCraft, you can do that, because you can issue commands in advance. You can queue things up. You can think 3 steps ahead and play 3 steps ahead, as opposed to Valorant, where you can think 3 steps ahead, but when the dude crosses your screen, you have to click the button at the right time.
Yeah, I mean,
not really any getting around that.
Like you said, like, they're not getting much international practice, so in their own region, that defaulty playstyle probably worked, and they won everything.
They're 2-1 right now. They're
Yeah,
doing
I mean,
well.
it's so
They lost to Heretics, right?
yeah, yeah,
But they beat the teams that they should
and
beat, and they did it convincingly.
yeah, so they're playing there and they're probably doing great, and then they get to an international event and nobody's playing that way.
Yeah, they're just
It's
at the bottom, right? And the problem
yeah,
is that everybody knows how Fnatic is playing too.
hmm
You know,
yeah, and
it's
it's
easy to compare
unfortunate
against.
because their players are very good, right? Or
For sure.
well, on paper they should be.
But
Lately Durka
individually,
hasn't
they're
been
very
doing
good.
very well actually statistically, but you have Alphair who's,
Well,
I mean,
I
when they
think
played
that when
against
you're on the
NRG, he just
duelist role, if your playbook is getting hard read by the enemy team, you're probably the first guy into the wood chipper.
that's fair.
You know, it's
Yeah,
the
I
hardest
mean,
ask. You're in the deepest pit.
hmm that's true. That's true. I mean, yeah, it is still a little unfortunate to watch that though, because it is, I guess, one of the well, on paper again, one of the best teams globally. All their players, right?
And you can't argue with their past
Um,
results.
exactly, yeah, and they've just it hasn't even been like a gradual downfall. Like they went from winning everything, and then they just
No, they're not even
didn't.
near.
Yeah, now they're not even in like the top 5 best teams in the world. Talk
Mm-hmm.
for most
Nope.
people anyway.
I put 3 APAC teams and like 4 NA teams
Before them,
and EDG ahead of them. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I would literally
yeah,
DRX, PRX, Jinggg, NRG, Sentinels, Loud. I was just thinking about them in the Americas earlier. EDG, and yeah, it just I had a Fnatic, and that's if Fnatic is even the best team in their own region.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, it's probably the weakest region right now,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate because they were the strongest for a very long time.
Well, and that's kind of be expected coming from the CS scene with all their great CS players and being able to incorporate all their great, um, experience that they've got in the region because they've got some of the most storied gamers, right? It's like I think when the EMEA came up, a lot of these players are older. I mean, Boaster's older. He's in his mid to late 20s. He's tried to put his own
He's almost
full
30
games
now.
for
Yeah,
Valorant, right? And so they bring a lot of experience and knowledge, and they were able to start making the right decisions before other teams in other regions even knew what the right decisions were in the game of Valorant, right?
that's fair. Yeah,
They were ahead of the curve in the learning department. I think in many ways, and that's great. Good job. You invented the wheel. And then PRX strapped that wheel to their Ferrari
yeah,
and drove it into the sunset.
yeah,
That's kind of how it is.
yeah. That's true.
And I
Yeah,
think the Brazil region did the same thing on the other side of the world because we saw Loud crazy good, crazy dominant for a long time. They had all those experienced Brazilian players with all this knowledge and all this understanding because in South America, they've got that Dota background, they've got the CS background, they're able to combine all this information that they've got from all these games that they played, and they come in and they invent their own version of the wheel, and Loud had a serious engine for a long time, and it's like only getting better, whereas Fnatic, they've yet to pull in those extra pieces. They're still kind of incomplete. They drew up the map, and then everybody else found the treasure first, I think. Or I guess second, because Fnatic did win. Did
that's true.
establish
Yeah,
themselves at the top, so.
you're not wrong though. They probably came in with a lot of knowledge on how to play the game, but other teams just took that and kind of made their own style, and they've just been left in the dust.
Yeah. Well, as exciting as this has been, we can't talk about all of it because it's not all done. And there are other power rankings to do, like the players and so next week, we're going to be back. We're going to talk about some of the top performing players in the league. They'll have had a good number of games to get their stats out there, and we'll see who's doing well and maybe who's not living up to expectations, and get a little bit of an update on the game. But Muffin, thank you for joining me. It's been fantastic having you on here.
It's been great to be here. Thank you for
And
inviting me.
we will see you guys next time. Peace out.